welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be looking at suspense, supernatural anime called Death Parade. A newlywed couple, Takashi and Machiko, arrives at an unknown place devoid of their memories. The bartender named Decim welcomes them and tells them that they are at Quindecim. He presents them with a roulette to choose a game to play with their lives at stake. The couple ends up playing darts. With each region of the board linked to their organ, they felt pain when the dart hit. They decide to miss the target on purpose. Takashi's hand slips, and he hits Machiko, who in return hits Takashi and calls it a mistake. Seeing Takashi angry, Machiko tells him to avoid the belly as she is having his baby. A classic trick to make guys vulnerable. Takashi recalls a conversation among Machiko's friends, stating that Machi is having an affair and hits the dart in her belly. When confronted, Machiko reveals Machi is not her nickname. They were talking about a high school friend who had the same name. Takashi refuses to admit that it is his baby. Machiko hits the bull and wins the game. Takashi and Machiko remember how they ended up here. They were on a honeymoon trip, and Machiko kept receiving calls. Irritated, Takashi tried to grab her phone and lost control of the wheel. They had fallen off the cliff and died. Decim reveals that he is the Arbiter, and Quindecim's purpose is to send people to hell or heaven. Hearing this, Takashi loses his sanity and tells Machiko to drop the act. She admits that she is having an affair, and Takashi tries to attack her. Decim binds him using his strings and sends Takashi off for reincarnation and Machiko to void. Two girls traveling by train reach a building. They ask the elevator operator, Clavis, to take them to Decim's place. One of the girls is Nane, and she is an arbiter. The other girl has no name and turns out to be an assistant. She is a newbie, and Nana explains that they pass judgment on the deceased based on their memories, as their memories are compiled and sent to arbiters beforehand. Nana takes her to a back seat while Decim intimidates Takashi and Machiko to play the game. They use life as a stake because they don't remember dying. The arbiters make them play the game to take out the darkest of their souls. As they watch the darts game proceeds, Nana tells her that they recover their memories during the game through some stimulus. After the decision, Nana asks for her opinion. According to her, Decim misjudged, and Machiko's cheating could be a one-time thing only. Apparently, Machiko lied about her affair to save Takashi from the grief of killing his child. Nana had a drink with Decim and forbade him from overlooking this mistake. Nana leaves the assistant with Decim and returns. On the way back, Nana told Clavis that she has a long way to go yet to make correct decisions. One day, Decim and his assistant come across a boy and a girl. The boy's name is Miura Shidru, and he remembers traveling on his college bus before arriving here. However, the girl doesn't remember a thing. They explain the rules to them, but take it as nothing and start looking for an exit. When Decim proposes that she will remember her name during the game, she decides to play the game. Their game turned out to be bowling, but the catch was that the balls had their hearts enclosed. I can bet the girl will win based on her experience of playing with hearts. Surprisingly, they enjoyed playing the game as they get to feel each other's heartbeats. Miura thinks that she is a childhood friend who moved away. The assistant is happy to see a jolly couple for a change. After a few turns, the girl starts remembering her identity and introduces herself as Chisato. She was indeed childhood friend of Miura. As the game proceeds, Miura regains his memories of a visit to a bowling alley with his friend where Chisato worked. He shrugs it off and has a heart-to-heart with her. After their ruling, Decim told his assistant that she was not Chisato but Mai, who was also a childhood friend of Miura. She had always been in love with Miura, but he liked Chisato, so she ended up going through plastic surgery to look like her. Miura's friends had told him this during their visit, but he continued to love her despite knowing the truth. This revelation made Mai happy as her efforts bore some fruit in the end. Decim and his assistant are having an out-of-the-ordinary couple. One is a reality show celebrity, Takabana Misaki, and the other is a neat, Yasuke. She takes him to a restroom and tells him that this is a reality show with hidden cameras. She persuades him to play along and act surprised because the director wants their natural reactions. They start the roulette, and it stops at arcade games. The first one to reach 2 victories will win. They start the game, and Yasuke turns out to be pretty good at it. He wins the first round easily, but before they start the second round, Misaki asks him to lose on purpose to make the show exciting. Girls make men do various stuff in the name of excitement, but I wasn't aware when losing became one of them. With their losses, both of them regain fragments of their memories. Misaki is a single mother of 5 kids who faced domestic abuse. Her life had just turned due to her acting career, but her manager killed her. Yasuke is a teenager with mommy issues who hasn't been able to accept his stepmother and eventually committed suicide due to unknown reason. With the last game being a decider, both give it their all. It's a mother's love for her children versus a child's love for her mom, which ends in a draw. Decim embraces them and tells them they did their best and sends them off. The assistant dreams about a boy named Jimmy. He sees a girl skating outside and approaches her. There is a snow-covered pit. and Jimmy falls into it, but his pain disappears when he sees her face. That day she sees Decim hanging Jimmy's photo in his bar on Nane's orders, which intrigues her. They have an odd bunch that day, a young kid and a grown-up, rude man. The man seems to remember Decim from somewhere and orders a drink first. The boy, on the other hand, doesn't remember anything. As he completed his drink, the man recollected his previous experience with Decim and held the boy hostage as he demanded to be released. Decim uses his strings to subjugate him but is surprised to see his assistant knocked out by the boy. Maybe Decim failed to recognize the boy from Karate Kid. The boy turns out to be an arbiter, Jinty, who is Decim's rival. He inquires about the assistant, and Decim tells him that she was a guest who could remember that she was dead, and he couldn't prompt her to play the game. He had her memories removed, and now she helps with judgments until her memories of being alive return. They start fighting, and Nana breaks them up. She tells him that this is a test to check the arbiters, but Jinty insisted on being the examiner. She tells Decim the things he missed and is a little disappointed with his score on the test. Meanwhile, Jinty insists on Decim passing judgment on the assistant as soon as possible. Jinty turns out to be bartender and an arbiter just like Decim. He has a loud big-mouthed girl, Mayu, with a handsome idol, Harada, to judge. The girl at first was not complying, but seeing Harada made her lose her senses. She is head over heels for him and agrees immediately. She presses the button to get a game which involves them placing their limb on the designated colored surfaces. At first, the game goes smoothly, but after a while, they start getting tired and Jinty spices up the game too. The floor changes its nature depending on the color selected. Harada uses his highly agile body to do strenuous movements, while Mei resists the urge to pee. You can't blame her for this. Anyone in her shoes will pee himself. Still not content, Jinty removes the floor, replacing it with poles supporting only the area where they stood. It was a deep fall with spikes at the bottom. Harada decides to throw Mayu off to save himself, but before he can act, Mayu forfeits herself. She chooses death over peeing herself in front of Harada and jumps. Harada remembers that he had died of an attack by the sister of a fan whom he had betrayed. Unable to bear the loss of another fan, he grabbed Mayu, but her hand slipped. She hits bottom but finds that it is a cushion and simultaneously remembers that she is already dead. She asks for a change of cloth as she peed herself, and Harada exclaims that she is his type. Jinty hasn't judged them yet and asks his fellow arbiters if they have ever faced trouble while judging anyone. Not knowing what to do, he keeps Mayu in a room. The assistant wakes up and finds a peculiar book among the books on alcohol. She reads the book and remembers that she is dead. Upon asking Decim, he says that maybe it was left by Quinn, the previous arbiter of Quindecim. Decim is taken back 5 years to when he first met Quinn. Decim and Jinty were taken to Quindecim to observe a judgment. Back then, Quinn had advised him to find something important to him. When the assistant asks if there is something he treasures, he shows her his dummies. After being judged, guests' bodies are turned into dummies to be recycled, but Decim claims and collects them. I hope we are not having another damer. All the mannequins he has are his precious guests. But he doesn't remember them, as arbiters are to forget about the people they judge. The assistant finds this intriguing and helps him with his meal. Nana and Quinn are enjoying some free time discussing their job. Nana is troubled that they, who have never died, judge those who have died. She wants to see some arbiter who has human emotions and thinks like humans. That's why they have integrated emotions in Decim, hiding this from the old geezer who is second to only God. Decim receives the memories of his guests, one of whom is a murderer. He is reluctant to handle a murderer, but Nana says that no one else is free at the moment, so he has to deal with it. The guests arrive, and one is a detective, Tatsumi, while the other is a simple guy, Shimada. They try to find an exit, but to no use. While in the restroom, Shimada finds a dagger in his bag, but he hides it from others. Tatsumi asks Shimada to work with him, and they turn the roulette. Their game comes out to be air hockey, and the first one to reach 6 goals wins. Tatsumi tells Shimada that Decim is not lying as his eyes show no emotions, but he is not a murderer. I know detectives are good profile readers, but this guy has a whole database at his expense. The game starts slow, and they regain fragments of their memories as points are scored against them. Both get serious now as both have uncompleted businesses to return to. Shimada is an orphan who started working immediately after high school to support his younger sister. One day, his sister was assaulted by a stalker, leaving him craving for revenge. On the other hand, Tatsumi, after his wife's murder, was kicked from the investigation division because he was obsessed with finding the murderer and killing him. Seeing things proceed towards the conclusion, Decim tells them that they will feel pain in the organ inscribed on the puck that scores. With each shock of pain, they remember a part of their life. Shimada recalls that he has already stabbed the stalker to death with the knife in his bag. However, this is not over yet. According to his sister, there were 2 of them, and the other guy just stood watching. Next turn, Shimada goals, and Tatsumi have a flashback. He had also killed the guy who murdered his wife. Looking at Tatsumi lying on the ground, Shimada asks Decim to help him, but he gets up. Shimada insists on stopping the match, but Tatsumi eggs him on, saying that the stalker will attack some other innocent girl if left as it is. Shimada can't comprehend why they have to compete for this, but Tatsumi says that sacrifices must be made to achieve something. I can't understand if Tatsumi is a highly educated scholar or a psychopath. As the game proceeds, it is revealed that the second stalker is Tatsumi. After getting his revenge, he started to help others get their revenge. That night, Tatsumi observed the stalker commit the crime to obtain evidence, and Shimada's sister thought he was an accomplice. The next day, he entered the stalker's house to kill him, but Shimada, who was already there, thought the stalker's accomplice had entered and stabbed him to death. Tatsumi hadn't saved his sister because he needed a victim to pass judgment. Despite the assistant's persuading, furious Shimada inflicted pain on Tatsumi's soul. The assistant then calls Decim inhumane as he doesn't understand human minds. Following the assistant's allegations, Decim goes to Nana to resign from being an arbiter. He suspects that the system they use to bring out the darkest of people's souls is faulty, and instead creates darkness in their souls. Nana is glad to see Decim's progress and tells him to judge the assistant quickly. Humans are not allowed to live in that dimension, and her extended period is about to end. As a reference, Nana sends a special guest to Decim. She is an old lady, Yumura Sachiko. She recognizes the painting of Jimmy but can't remember from where. She is to play old maid, and Decim also joins in the card game. Sachiko praises the figures made on the cards and informs that she is an illustrator. She wins the game, but looking at the last card, she realizes that she is dead because the character on it was never drawn or published. It was only in her mind. She tells Decim that she had fun playing and reconnecting with her characters. They continue the game, and with assistant losing the game. She has a flashback of her childhood and remembers her name, Chiyuki. Decim has to judge her soon because her body is turning into a dummy. Nana asks Quinn to compile her memories and send them to Decim. The old geezer, Oculus, calls Clavis and reads his mind to find out about Nane's plot. He thinks the idea of an arbiter with emotions is absurd. Meanwhile, Jindy tells Mayu that a way to retrieve Harada's soul from the void is to throw another person into the void. But Mayu refuses to sacrifice someone for Harada's sake and decides to go to the void herself. When Jindy mocks her for calling Harada her life, she strikes by saying that she pities arbiters as they don't even know why they judge people. Upon reaching the void, her body pops into a dummy, and her soul wanders away into the darkness along with Harada's. Chiyuki dresses up differently from usual and takes her ice skates along. Decim had made an ice rink in his bar already. She skates in the rink and slowly starts regaining her memories. Looking at how people are regaining their memories at this bar, they turn it into an Alzheimer's care institute. She remembered that she was inspired to skate as a child by Jimmy, and eventually she learned to skate. As she grew up, skating became a part of her personality, and she won various laurels in the field. One day during practice, she hurt her knee, and the doctor refrained her from skating again. The life she had built with staking as the center started to fall apart. She started losing her friends from skating, and her parents were not much of a support either. Unable to bear the pressure, she took her life. Oculus confronts Nana and tells her to stop her nonsense. He says all of them are dummies, including him, and arbiters will make the same decision even if they have human emotions. As a proof, he tells Nana to wait and watch. Decim spikes Chiyuki's drink and takes her to the lowest level, also known as the living world. They are unable to communicate with people or touch things. Decim tells Chiyuki that 7,000 people die every hour, and if Chiyuki wants, then he can bring her back to life in exchange for one life. All she has to do is to press a button. Watching her mother cry while holding her photo, Chiyuki decides to press the button, but she couldn't make herself snatch others' happiness. Chiyuki ends up having a breakdown and begs Decim to press the button for her. Decim is overwhelmed by the emotional state of the moment and lets out tears. Turned out he was not as much of a Sigma as he acted to be. The world starts to crumble, and Decim tells Chiyuki that this was an ordeal to understand her better. He tells her that she passed it and will be reincarnated. Decim tries to be a good arbiter and decides to deal his guests with more care. On the other hand, Oculus couldn't believe that an emotionless dummy has started to feel emotions. He thinks that emotions will ruin the judgment process. Later, Nana tells her friends to keep a low profile for a while because Oculus is keeping an eye on them. If you liked the video, like and subscribe to the channel.